Okay, we're talking about books. Haruki Murakami. I should like him by all rights. Everything about his writing seems to me to be like sort of in my vibe. Sort of beautiful, like stripped down prose, surreal, interesting stuff. But so far, having read like four of his books, I just haven't had that like, whoa, this is incredible experience that I have with like favorite authors of mine. So I've read some fiction books. I thought maybe I'd try out some of his nonfiction. What I talk about when I talk about running also does not do a ton for me. Uh, it's a sort of memoir about running and writing and his similar approach to the two. He describes himself as talentless at both and sort of just like making his way through the world of like both of these things just through like sheer determination and just like showing up every day and just doing the work, which I relate to a ton. But I think it's one of those things where if I had found this when I was like 10, 12 years ago, it would have been like a huge revelation to me. But right now, it's kind of just like stuff I already have figured out for myself. It did make me want to get back into running again, but not as much as watching Physical 100 did. I'm going to group together all of the Discworld books I read over this sort of section of 10 books into one area because I read like four of them. Discworld is one of my favorite fantasy series. It's by Terry Pratchett. There's 50-something books, and they follow a variety of characters. Sort of, you can jump in at almost any book, and it'll work out. I can't recommend them enough. They're warm, they're cozy. I'm gonna go over each one individually really quickly, but like as a whole, I recommend them because they're just like warm, cozy, nice reading. The paperbacks cost like $10 most places I've seen, and you can get them for even cheaper online, I'm sure. They're just like all over the place. First one I read is Guards. It has one of the best characters from the whole series, Captain Sam Vine of the City Guard. Captain Sam Vines. He's trying to solve this mystery about dragons appearing in the city. It's great. He's great. Would highly recommend it as like a good starter book if you're looking to get into the series. Equal Rights follows the first female wizard as she attempts to get into the Unseen Academy. It is pretty like straightforward, like feminist, pro-feminist like piece of literature. Not like his best writing, honestly, but it's a fun read, and it has kind of the same vibe that a Studio Ghibli movie has, just like witches and young girls, you know, making their way in the world. It's a good time. I would recommend it. Going Postal is probably my favorite one I've read so far of all the books. Follows one of my favorite characters, conman Moist von Lipwig, as he's a con man and criminal forced against his will to become a public servant in the form of being the head of the post office. It speaks a lot to problems that are very relevant today: corporate greed, private entities versus public entities. It's all wrapped up in a very fun romp, and Moist is one of those great characters who really like takes the reins of the story and like goes for it. I enjoyed Going Postal so much, I went immediately into Making Money, which is the sort of sequel to it, in which Moist proceeds to take over the bank of Ankh-Morpork, which is the major city in the Discworld. It's pretty similar to the first. It's not quite as good, but there's some interesting ideas, and kind of once you get a taste for Terry Pratchett, there's kind of like it's even his like not great books are kind of like just a fun, just a chill read, just a good time. Getting out of the Discworld books, my partner bought me Lemony Snicket's novella Poison for Breakfast. We both loved the series of Unfortunate Events as a kid, and so it was a nice little birthday gift. It follows the author through a morning spent solving a mystery. It's like definitely too young for me, but I think it would be a great book to give a kid who is sort of just read a series of Unfortunate Event as maybe like growing out of that sort of very young adult like sort of novel stuff and maybe getting into some more adult stuff. There's a lot of references to literature and art and philosophy. It like really does like open up the world of like art, give you something to sort of explore there. So I would recommend it for buying for a kid for sure, and it's a nice little thing that like reminds me of my childhood. I also read Chainsaw Man Volume 1. I've read the entire first series online, but I loved it so much I want to start building out the collection of the paper edition. If you're into manga, you probably don't need me to say that Chainsaw Man is great. Everyone and their mom is saying it. It's gory, it's over the top, it's horny, it's violent, but also it's like very thoughtful and really complete, a like complete story in a way that a lot of manga sort of fail to be because they are so serialized. Chainsaw Man feels like a complete, or at least series 1 as I read it, feels like a very complete thing, and I'm enjoying series 2 so far. So I definitely recommend it. It is very adult, obviously. Then I went straight from Chainsaw Man into Catch-22. Kind of a tough one to talk about quickly because there's a lot happening with how it's written and the ways that that relates to the themes, and the plot is really convoluted, I guess is the right way to say it. Maybe not the most important part. It's hard to describe the book. It's a classic for a reason, though. It is tremendously funny. It does a great job at sort of making, I want to write like a full essay on the way it sort of makes evident the way that like society and nations and rules like interact with the actual truth of the world. Like, you are here to protect your country, you are here to do all these high, polluting things, but also you are here to just murder another person, and how those sort of correlate. It's tough to describe, but I do recommend it. If you are sensitive to depictions of like sexual assault, maybe skip this one. It's not like great. It doesn't treat women great. I don't think it like is like giving a thumbs up to that by any means, but if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, it might. There are other great books as well you could read. Another great book, Haunting of Hill House. It's great. It's short. It's just a perfect haunted house story. It follows a woman who joins in with a group of strangers to investigate this old haunted mansion. It's subtle, it's moving, it's frightening. You could read it in a day. I highly recommend, if you're looking for something to like grab close to Halloween, just sit down and like knock out over a weekend. Can't recommend it enough. Great book. The Only Good Indians is another horror novel, another example of great writing in this 10 books. I've got a lot of really good prose. It's super specific here, like very cut down, but also just hyper focused. The characters and the places get really fleshed out in ways that I don't think a lot of horror novels like really get around to. Ton of interesting visuals, really gripping plot. I read it in like 2 days. Just a really unique read, and like just good to see some like really good contemporary like horror fiction. There's a ton out there that's great right now, and definitely worth the read.